this is LIMARC around 2006. And what we have is in the blue circle, we have Glen Oaks, W2VL. And of course, it's a repeater. The inputs to the repeater could be coming from your car, from your home, from your HT. And the output to the repeater would be basically to any of the above. It could be to a car, could be to your home, could be to an HT, wherever you happen to be. Off in the distance in Suffolk County, we had the Selden repeater, 147375. And the Selden repeater, same thing. It's a repeater. The inputs were coming in from a car, from a home station, or from an HT. And they were totally separate. And I don't want to say it was a stigma, but in some ways it was. The people in Suffolk County felt that they were kind of cheated in everything that was going on. So that was our two separate systems around 2006. Now, at that time, Andy took over as technical chairman. And one of the things that Andy wanted to do was to connect the two repeaters. And at first, the connection was going to be done with a 900 megahertz linking, but that proved to be a little bit difficult because the Selden site, more than any other place, had a lot of beepers in it, and the beepers were interfering with us. And then it also had to do with the antenna. There's a 25 meg split at 900 megs, and it's a question of your transmitting and receiving. But in any event, we ended up with an RF linking in the 440 band. Now, once we got that linking, and it's an RF linking, although we have other alternatives if necessary, but it's an RF linking. Now, the range of LIMARC, and I should point out, previously in the other two repeaters, the range could have been 30, 40, 50 miles and around, Selden a little bit less. But now, with the linking, and the same principle, you're coming in by a car, you're coming in by your home radio, by your HT, but now you're coming out either in Nassau County or in Suffolk County, but we basically go from way over here, well into New Jersey, well across the Hudson River, all the way over to here, where the Hamptons are a pretty good signal, and occasionally you might even be able to go a little bit further. But that was what the initial linking did for us, and truly, it helped to build LIMARC. At one point, LIMARC had, I think, 600 or 700 members. And of course, that number had dropped at some period of time. But by linking, there were people who really felt enfranchised again. And so our membership began to grow. So this RF linking between these two repeaters, so what you transmit here comes out there, what you transmit here comes out there. Now, that's still a work in progress that Lou, our technical chairman, is working on to make sure that both repeaters, you can hear what's going on both repeaters so that people aren't stepping on each other. All right, so now we have introduced into that Echolink. Now, given that the symbols are a little bit different, you get the idea. You still got the tower, you got the car, you got the radios. But what was introduced now is a computer. And this was introduced by Jonathan Taylor, K1RFD. And it was a program called Echolink. Hold on a second. All right, program called Echolink. And in this particular program, as Jonathan introduced it, this computer can be accessed by anything. So this computer can be accessed by a person over here talking to a person over here. Or it could be coming in from somebody's radio to the computer, to this computer, to a person, or to a radio, or to a repeater, or to a car. In other words, this is, I guess in mathematics, we'd call it combinations and permutations. How many different combinations can you make? But this computer now becomes an integral part of it, connected to this computer, another integral part. They have to be in there. However, this computer could be W2VL in Glen Oaks. This computer could be W2KPQ in Selden, but it could also be JA4 something or other in Tokyo or in Australia or anywhere that there happens to be an Echolink node. Now, we should mention that a node is just a point in a system, 1 o'clock is a node on a clock. A node is simply a point in a system. It could be a repeater somewhere. It could be your computer if you've signed up for it. Now, again, so here is here's our Glen Oaks repeater. I'm sorry, our Glen Oaks system. It's funny, I have my hearing aids in and bells go off. Anyway, and here's our Selden computer in the Echolink system. Now, to get to these, and we'll talk about it a little further, but to get to these, you can only have one repeater with that call sign. So we have an L and we have an R. An R, in theory, means that it's connected directly to the repeater. So this computer is actually at the repeater site and it gets called an R. We have the same situation in Glen Oaks, but you can't have two R's. So we call it an L, a link. But they're both doing the same thing. But if it were a link, for example, if I had an Echolink node in my house, I could link that to the Plainview repeater. And in linking it to the Plainview repeater, it would now be called a link from my node to that repeater. So that is how the Echolink will actually work.
Claudia wants to know if she can come Saturday at
Fine.
7.
It's fine.
7.
It's fine. Okay. Now, that is the basic Echolink system. Again, anybody who can access the computer, could be from your home, you've established a node, you have to register for it, but you've established it, or LIMARC, or anyone else, that's a node, computer to computer, but you can access it as an individual to your computer, as a radio to your computer, as a repeater to your computer. Now, what Jonathan did in your later years was to come up with the same program for your smartphone. And this is just the way basically it looks on my iPhone. And you can see the kinds of, this would be the basic screen. Here's your transmit button. And these are some of the information that's available to you. And at first he came out, it was easier for him to do it, I think, on the iPhone and more popular. So he did that and then eventually came out with it on the Android phones. Okay, now this was around 9 o'clock Monday morning. In the Echolink system, there was at that time over 6,000 people or 6,000 users available. Now, some of them would be on repeaters, some of them would be links, some of them were just users. But here's a quick sampling of the stations that were on there. How would you contact them? Well, you would contact them either by their call sign, because that's one way of doing it, or you would do it by their node number. Now look at the node numbers here in the 500,000, 500,000, because so many people can participate in this system. So again, you could get to them and look, you can see where, you can see where they are, where they come from. They're telling you that they're on their, I guess, the time last contacted or whatever. Now, again, this is approximately 9 o'clock in the morning. You can Google and see the Echolink system. All of these are people that were on. Now you see a little bit of an emptiness over here. It's 9 o'clock in the morning, so it's, it's 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock as you move over to the West Coast. Later on in the day, this would propagate even more. But you can get some idea that in an Echolink system, if you can get into the system, there's almost always someone to talk to. Okay, so how do you use the Echolink system? Well, you go to the Echolink webpage, which I'll mention again later on, but it's echolink.org. And you can find all the listings, all the nodes, wherever they are. And what you want to do, because if you're using an HT, I mean, you're not going to be able to punch in, or you can punch in a call sign, but it's a little more difficult. So ideally, you want to be able to use this kind of a code number just to make it easier. So you can look one up, or as we'll talk about in a few minutes, there's random selection, and we'll come to that. But how do you do this Echolink? Well, whether it's the LIMARC 440 machine. Now, again, let me say, we don't allow outgoing from the LIMARC W2VL or the W2KPQ in Selden. It just would tie up everything. I just have to keep an eye on the timing here. It would tie up everything. So what we do is the 440 machine is always available for you to do this. PTT, you press to talk, press the button down, simply enter the node number and then release, and you should be connected. So now, for example, now the reason why I put that particular, put an ET up, an HT up there, you know, there's three different functions that the keypad plays. When it's just in a standby mode, you know, it may reverse the frequency, it may do some simple functioning. When you press an F button, then these keys perform a separate function. But when you push the press to talk, that gives you your operating keypad. And believe it or not, I know it sounds crazy, but in just preparing for the demonstration, I forgot how to do the number sign. But the number sign becomes active when you hit the press to talk. So now, for example, and I think you should be able to pick up the audio, what I'm doing with my HT and my glasses and my proper light is I'm going to key down, and then I'm going to punch in that code number that's in front of you. And then just, we'll try to see if you can pick up the audio. So.
Connecting to 6Y5RA repeater.
Okay, now I've just connected to Jamaica. Just as quickly as I've just spoken to you, I'm on a repeater.
K2KNB connected.
Okay, so now it's just ID to confirm that it is now connected to that repeater. So in the flash that we've just speaking here, I've connected to Jamaica, and that could have been anywhere in the world. Just 1, 2, 3. Now, to disconnect, I'm not going to actually go and talk on the repeater, but to disconnect, now I have to hit the number sign, but we don't always get back a confirmation. So I would say if Lou is listening, NY2H, just make sure that we disconnect. But anyway, I key down, press to talk, number sign, and again, I can't confirm that we've disconnected. In fact, I'm going to do it again, and I'm going to double on that key. Hold on one second. Yeah, I'm going to double on that because that would clear everything. Okay, that double click may tell me that we've disconnected, but again, if Lou's listening, hopefully he'll do that. Okay, that's as simple as it is. That's our 440 repeater. You're welcome to use it. And again, go to the Echolink website and look for any repeaters that might be close by to you and use it. It's there. It's a lot of fun. Find out places that you'd like to talk to. And the reverse is true if you're outside of New York and you want to come back and talk on W2VL because you missed the golden tones of my voice. Just come back to W2VL-R or W2VL-L and you'll be right in there with the Echolink. Okay, so moving on. If you're using your HT or DTMF microphone, you can see here are some of the DTMF codes. Again, you have to remember to press down, but these are the codes. So you have a way of connecting by a call sign, by a way of the node number. Now, if you're just out and about and want to do something, you can hit these zeros. 00 will give you a random selection. You don't know who you're going to be talking to. It's just, again, it's a lot of fun. You're sitting around, you got your HT, it's a quiet Sunday, nothing good on television, whatever the case is. This information, echolink.org, but you can see what the DTMF codes can do for you. Okay, again, more information, www.echolink.org. .org. All right, moving on. The next thing is IRLP, Internet Radio Linking Program. You're looking at much less congestion here. And the reason for it is that IRLP is a peer-to-peer program. That's one person talking to one person. Again, using a computer, and we'll see that in a minute, but one person talking to one person except for a special circumstance that we'll also talk about. However, you do see some concentrations, and those concentrations in IRLP are called reflectors. A reflector is something that allows multiple stations to call into. Now, it's still peer-to-peer. We're going from our IRLP node to that reflector. That's all we can do. That's the only one that we can talk to. But the reflector has many people coming into it. And therefore, that's why you see so many different blue lines pointing towards this one, which I believe is Cincinnati, and the other one is Las Vegas, two of the most popular ones out there. But you can see an obvious difference, but it doesn't mean that there's not a lot of users, because again, once you're getting into that reflector, there's quite a few people there. And this was also about the same time, 9:30 in the morning. Okay, so here's IRLP. IRLP, again, uses the computers in the same way that Echolink does. The difference is, and again, there's a variation because there are dongles for IRLP, but I don't want to deal with that. The difference is that you must be connected to an RF source. And this is why some people, particularly purists, prefer IRLP to Echolink. So you have to come into that computer from an RF source. And that's why the arrows are connecting from the computer to your repeaters. But I have an IRLP node in my house. It's my 220 receiver, which is not working right now, but that's another story. Anyway, so it doesn't have to be the LIMARC repeaters. It could be a node in my house. Jerry, WB2ZEX, has a node in his house. If you can look up on IRLP who's out there and you're close to an IRLP node, all you have to do is go in there and again, we'll explain the mechanism for doing it, but it's available. Again, it's an RF connection node to the computer. The computers are then linked together. They could be in New York to California. They could be in New York to Japan. As you know, via Echolink, just to mention, we very often get in Matt from Japan coming in via Echolink, but if you had an IRLP node, it would be exactly the same. Here's an example of IRLP nodes that are up and running. Again, here's their node number, exactly the same as Echolink. Here's their node number. Here's all the information about them, where they're located. And again, just go to, in this case, it will be irlp.net. Again, I just have to watch the time. irlp.net. And again, just pick where you'd like to go. Or, you know, if you're going someplace, you're traveling to Florida, you're traveling to California, you're going to Canada, find out where there's an IRLP node and use that node to come back to W2VL in a way that we'll explain in another minute. But here's all the nodes. Now, in addition, we talked about the reflector. So now what happens in a reflector is on your left, let's call that for the argument's sake, we'll call that Glen Oaks, although our system's a little different. Let's say it's Glen Oaks, and let's say over here is Selden. Now, if we connected Glen Oaks and Selden, that's the only connection that we could make. You cannot do a second IRLP connection. However, we go into the reflector, and now not only Selden, W2KPQ, and not only Glen Oaks, W2VL, are into this reflector, but other stations anywhere can come into this reflector and be part. Got to learn to turn the volume down too. But anyway, so any station can come into this reflector. And that is what has really broadened IRLP, so that large groups, you know, there's tech nets on IRLP, there's get-togethers on IRLP, because now many stations can join as opposed to that singular. That was, wait, I just went backwards? Yeah, that was Gary. 1, 2, not found. Okay. All right, let me move on to the next slide. Now, these are the reflectors. So we are part of the New England reflector right over here. And you see that that is node number 9120, but it actually has this many different channels. I can't explain to you why this is 1, 2, and 3. I'm not sure about that, but we use the New England reflector, and the particular node that we use is 9126, which I believe is this one over here. Anywhere that you are, all you need to do is to get into an IRLP node, type in 9126, and you're right into the LIMARC system. So you can't go to the individual node of Glen Oaks or the individual node of Selden, but you go into 9126. Another one that's really a lot of fun, one of the biggest ones around, is 9250, which is called the Western reflector, right down over here. And when you connect to that one, literally they're coming in from all over the world. So it's a great experience. And again, you've got your HT. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to register for anything. Take advantage of it. Okay, so in communicating with IRLP, normally it's very similar to Echolink with this one exception. You do the press to talk, you verbally give your call sign, then punch in the node number, okay, exactly as you did, and as you heard, there will be an announcement very similar to the Echolink announcement. You have to pause. Echolink is, IRLP is much more susceptible to the time factor than Echolink seems to be. Again, just watching time. So you have to be aware of that. You should be pausing 2 or 3 seconds before you try to talk. Now, I want to point out that you can disconnect. I'm jumping ahead for a minute. To disconnect, press to talk, always give your call sign, and then enter 73. I have to say that most of us that started out with this would do our call sign like K2KNB 73. No, that's not the way it works. It's your call sign K2KNB and then enter with your keypad 73, and you should disconnect. Now, here's a downside. If people are talking, it will not automatically disconnect. It will disconnect when there is a period of silence. So don't get nervous if you found that you didn't disconnect. It may take a little bit of time. So under normal circumstances, just like Echolink, find an IRLP node, which R440 also has. Find the node, use the protocols. You're dealing with a lot of different people throughout the whole world. And just be careful, be courteous. Now, our 440 node requires a little bit of a different operation because we have both IRLP and Echolink on there. And the difference is code 1928. So when you press down, push to talk, first punch in 1928, and then in a smooth sequence, give your call sign and the node number. Now, for the purpose of a quick demonstration, I'm going to key down and I'm going to connect to W2VL, which is node number 9126. So I'm going to key down, and there's a lot of numbers for me to punch in, guys, but I'm going to key down and begin. So K2KNB. We've got some noise. I'm not sure.
I think you dropped carrier in the middle of the 1928 sequence.
right, let me try again.
Because I was listening.
All right, K2KNB.
No, it's dropping out. It's dropping out.
All right, so I wonder if we...
9, 2, 8, 9, not found.
Okay, so we may be okay now. So hold on a second, one more time. So,
That you called is not responding.
all right, somebody may be, no, it shouldn't be in effect. All right, but anyway, again, because I want to watch the time. So you get the idea. Only on this. Now, other repeaters may have similar problems. Or not problems, but similar protocols. And remember that some of the repeaters that you may have access to belong to, let's say, a private club, and sometimes you have to ask permission to use it. But just bear in mind, for this repeater, and you're welcome to go to 449-125. It's on all night if you're a night owl and want to do something. Just remember, push to talk, enter 9128. Actually, and probably, I have to think about that. 9128, your call sign, and then the node number. I might be wrong. You might have to give your call sign. Nope, you got to get into the system first. So it's 1928, call sign, enter node number. To disconnect, again, you've got to do the 1928 because that puts you back into the Echolink, into the IRLP system, and then you would say punch in 73. Okay, again, for any of the information, in this case, it's www.irlp.net. Now, you can, if you wanted, set up a node. You have to buy some hardware for it. So $100, $150, if you're really interested in, because you could then put a node around your house, contact that node through your HT, and just be talking to the world sitting in your backyard. Okay, so basically that's it. I think that was the last slide. Yep, that was the last slide. And so basically, as we return to coverage here, my point is to make you aware that it's there. There's no cost to you to do it. It's a tremendous tool, a lot of fun. It's a great learning experience. One year when we were doing the library, there were some fires out in California, but it was just coincidental. I hit the 00 and I got a random connection, and I ended up in California, and we're talking to a guy, and he says, oh yeah, I got to run now. The fires are coming over the hill in about 10 to my house, you know. It's just fascinating. It's a lot of fun. It's free. If you want to get more involved, you can sign up to get an Echolink node, no cost, but you have to verify who you are. You can put that on your computer. You saw that you can have it on your smartphone. To do it on your smartphone, it's the same situation. You must register, but now you have a node. Now you can be anywhere and pick up your smartphone and dial in W2VL or wherever you want to go. So take advantage of it. It's there. There's no charge. It's a lot of fun. You got the HT. You got the radio with the DTMF keyboard. Go back to the website, echolink.org. Go back to the website, irlp.net, and have a lot of fun with it. Okay, looks like we have a nice crowd in there tonight. That's perfect.